Hello everybody. For today, we're going to be going over human factors, visual scanning collision avoidance, and runway incursion avoidance. For our references for today, we have the FARS, the AIM, the PHAC, and a secondary resource as well, which is right here. But to start off, let's talk about the hypoxias. Hypoxia means reduced oxygen or not enough oxygen. There are four main types of hypoxia. Hypoxic hypoxia, your basic hypoxia, which is insufficient oxygen available to the body as a whole. Hypemic hypoxia, which occurs when blood is not able to take and transport sufficient amount of oxygen. Your stagnant hypoxia, which means that blood is not flowing and the oxygen is not flowing to where it needs to go. And the histotoxic hypoxia, which refers to poisons in the body. Hypoxic hypoxia is your general altitude hypoxia, reaching that high altitude and not being able to get that oxygen to your system. Hypemic hypoxia usually relates with blood thinners, things that make it to where the blood has difficulty carrying that rich oxygen. Stagnant hypoxia, for example, your leg going to sleep. This is mainly done through G's. Cold temperatures can also relate to that, but when you're pulling G's, especially in fighter jets where you have that zero gravity, your blood's not flowing. Histotoxic hypoxia relates to poisons, and you mainly see this in drugs and alcohol, where the blood's not properly flowing, properly holding the oxygen, but there is oxygen still there. The general symptoms of hypoxia include cyanosis, so blue fingertips, blue nails, blue lips, headaches, reduced response to stimuli, because again, your body's not reacting properly, you're having that impaired judgment, senses of euphoria, visual impairment, drowsiness, lightheadedness, tingling, and numbness. So again, for these hypoxias, they each have their own solutions, but it all has to deal with oxygen and how oxygen relates to our body, how it flows, and how oxygen gets into our veins. So our next area is hyperventilation, the excessive rate and depth of respiration leading to abnormal loss of carbon dioxide from the blood. So when you're panicking, when you're freaking out, you start breathing heavy and constantly breathing more and more, it's going to mess with your body and not be able to give you as much oxygen as you need, because you're actually abnormally losing carbon dioxide. Increased breathing rate and anxiety further aggravate the problem and can lead to unconsciousness. It's an important thing to look out for, but again, this mainly comes from panicking. We need to keep level heads as pilots. We are not able to panic. So in hyperventilation, simply just pausing, taking time to breathe. If you need supplemental oxygen and there, that could also. Next is the middle ear and sinus problems. Middle ear and sinus problems come from the internal mechanisms in our body. The Eustachian tube allows air pressure to equalize in the middle ear, and later on it shows the fluids in our body that actually move during turns and how that affects our body. But mainly what comes with that is the senses and pressures within our body get messed up. As we reach higher and higher altitudes, sinus problems become worse, and having flown with a sinus problem once, it is not comfortable for sure. The pressures in our body makes your head feel like it's tight and like it's about to explode almost, and that doesn't help, especially with your balance as you're doing turns. And even in IFR, you start losing that sense of balance, sense of feeling, which leads to our next section, spatial disorientation and illusions. So again, the inner ear, that sense position and the way we're balanced, and that comes with somatosensory, which comes with the nerves, the muscles, the joints, hearing, sense, position based on gravity, feeling, and then the visual, which is our eyes. All of these get affected when we get any infections, but also in IFR, because with the IFR we lose that sense of visual, which is our body's primary way of knowing where we're at and how we're acting. So with that, spatial disorientation happens mainly when you're moving around a lot, doing sharp turns, steep spirals, anything like that, and you're losing your sense of positioning, not only through illness, not only through lack of visual, but also, I believe it was here, your body position. having to keep your body correlated with the plane helps you understand where the plane's at. If you're moving your body around and around, slip, skid, and uncoordinated turns feel similar, and pilots feel like they're being forced sideways into their seat. We have to understand how our body feels in the airplane to understand if the airplane's flying coordinated. And if you're not paying attention to that, flying, you're going to fly uncoordinated while doing maneuvers as well, which is going to increase your spatial disorientation, and you're going to lose your sense of where you're at plane-wise. Right. Going into our next, also I'd like to mention motion sickness. Motion sickness also is connected with spatial disorientation. The more you're flowing around, the more you're moving. If you're doing steep turns and the steep spirals, then you're doing chandelles right after. Your body's not going to feel comfortable, and especially if you're doing them at 0 G's, you'll feel like your stomach and your organs kind of tense up a bit. Motion sickness is going to affect you as a pilot because, again, it's another distractor that you're thinking about. Oh, my stomach doesn't feel too well, or hey, that felt awkward as a maneuver, and now I'm focusing on that instead of flying the airplane. Dehydration and nutrition. We're going over through this, by the way, so our next section is dehydration, nutrition, stress and fatigue, and carbon monoxide poisoning. So let's go over dehydration and nutrition, which connects with all that. Being well fed, along with fatigue as well, all of these connect to our first hierarchy of needs, our physical needs. Our physical needs to be fed, our physical needs to be hydrated, to get good sleep, all that, and to get stressed with mental being, which goes on later. All that's important because, again, if you're flying and you're thinking about, oh, I'm hungry, let's just get there already, or hey, I'm tired, I'm not going to focus as well. Even dehydration, you'll feel like your body is like, hey, we should get water, hey, we should get water, and you're constantly thinking about that. Your lips are starting to get chapped, your mouth is getting pasty. And as you're flying, that's all things you're thinking about when you should be focusing on the aircraft, focusing on the environment around you, and all of that. Carbon monoxide poisoning, I must have missed that, sorry. But carbon monoxide poisoning is a odorless, tasteless effect in our aircraft. Comes from exhaust fumes, anything like that. And we have sensors, both in the G1000, some advanced aircraft as well. And if not, there's, I believe, a sticker that starts fading into a different color that will tell you if there's carbon monoxide within the aircraft. That all tells us, hey, something is wrong, we need to get out of here immediately, we need to land immediately and figure out what's wrong. But without those, it's a deadly hazard because we can't find it. We don't know what's happening, we don't taste what's happening, we just start feeling a little bit dizzy, maybe our vision fades a little bit, and we'll just simply pass out. Colorless, odorless gas produced by internal combustion engines. Attached to the body, so again, we're absorbing carbon monoxide faster than we absorb oxygen, which correlates with again, our hypoxies as well. And that's something that we need a sensor for. That's something we can't plan for, we can't react to. So it is a major hazard that we must consider. Right, talked about that. We talked about so stress and fatigue. Forgot to mention this, but there is acute fatigue and chronic fatigue. Acute stress, chronic stress. For acute fatigue, that's going to be something like I didn't sleep well last night. Chronic fatigue is something like insomnia. Haven't slept well in a while. For the stress, it's the same thing. Acute stress, I have a test tomorrow. I'm a little bit nervous. Chronic stress, sorry, is something like my grades have been dropping constantly and I'm worried about bills, my family has certain issues, anything like that. That all affect us during flight because, again, it's all things worth thinking about that could be distracting us from, again, flying the aircraft, which is the first thing we need to do in the airplane. Alright, awesome. Let's see what our next section is. Dehydration. And then there are optical illusions as well. I'm not sure if I have it in this section, but there are a lot of, here we go. Types, optical illusions. We'll talk about that in a bit. Here we go. Night vision illusions. So there's multiple illusions that all depend on how we're looking at the aircraft. We have autokinesis, staring at a single point, for more than a few seconds, it appears to move on its own. This also connects to traffic and collision avoidance, which for VFR we're seeing avoid, but especially during night as well. If you're focusing on, let's say, another aircraft, and that singular light is getting bigger, it's getting closer, that's something that you need to consider is, hey, that looks off. The single point looks like it's moving, it looks like it's getting closer, it looks like it's getting bigger. That's what to look out for collision avoidance. Another night illusion is the false horizon. Natural horizon is obscured or not readily apparent. So when you see city lights, you see tall buildings, or you're flying towards the ocean, you might lose your sense of horizon, which, if you're flying VFR and focusing on that horizon, can throw you off. We have instruments in the aircraft that help us avoid this, but flying as a sole visual pilot, that's something we need to focus on. Night, the aircraft can be moving away for a second when it is in fact approaching the second aircraft. Again, all these visual illusions are things we have to look out for, especially during night, but mainly during VFR. IFR, you're going to get more physical illusions. Your body is going to feel off because, again, IFR, you're relying on your instruments. Now, going back, let's go ahead and talk about scuba and alcohol. Again, for this 8-1-1 for the AIM, Section 1 Fitness of Flight, goes over a lot of these really simply, really fast. It tells you all the important stuff to know. But the PHAC as well goes over these areas in more detail, more depth. I like the PHAC a bit more, but for testing purposes, this especially, this is a FAA resource that you could pop up. You could say the bare bones of the whatever you're talking about, and it should help you out. Where is it? Finding it. There we go. Decompression sickness. Sorry. So, scuba diving gets carbon dioxide, or nitrogen, in our body. So as we're flying, we need to understand that if we have a person who has been going over controlled descents or uncontrolled descent, we need to understand that their body has nitrogen levels that we need to react to, and we can't let them fly for 12 hours for an uncontrolled descent, so they're not going as low, or 24 hours if they're doing a controlled descent. So they're going super low and they need to control how fast they go up. For decompression purposes, we need to understand that their bodies during flight will react differently. As we climb in altitude, decompression sickness means that these nitrogen gases will react to their body and give them what's called the bends, freezing up their joints and their bones to where they get stiff, and it is a major issue that we need to understand. Alcohol as well, 91-117, 3 main rules. No alcohol within 8 hours of any flight. So, bottle to throttle, if you're going to be in controls of the aircraft, you can't drink within 8 hours before that flight. You can't fly while under the influence of alcohol. One thing I like to note is that does include hangovers. If you're hungover, don't go on a flight. It's going to be uncomfortable and you're breaking the law. Another one is no alcohol concentration of 0.04 or greater in the blood or breath. That's just, again, another numerical rule that we need to consider, but alcohol during flight is a major no-no. Let's go over the scanning, which I believe is up here. So for our visuals, we need to understand how we're looking out at the aircraft, how we're looking for other aircraft. Our visual scanning is important. Normally, I do them section by section, short bursts of vision, and looking at my peripheral as well, because I know my peripheral is going to catch more movement than if I were to stare at something. Another thing to consider is blind spots and why we do clearing turns. Our aircraft has specific blind spots. I could scan for traffic all I want, but if I can't look past my wing struts, I won't be able to see any traffic within there. So we do clearing turns for that. And then collision risk comes from lack of awareness. So collisions all come from either being improperly guided, which again, ATC during VFR, they'll help us out, but it's still up to us as pilots to see and avoid traffic. That's one major thing that we need to consider when flying VFR. So if you're seeing traffic, you need to look out, you need to understand where that traffic is. And lastly, we're going to be going over runway incursion avoidance and all the taxi. So it's important to understand where you're at. For controlled airports, they will tell you where to taxi. Always write down where they're telling you, especially if it's an unfamiliar airport, and keep chart supplements near you to get taxi routes, any hotspots where they know collisions have happened before, and be aware of all that. It's again important to understand where you're at, but also listening out for where other people are at. I was just at that area, and now I hear another aircraft is taxiing in that same area. Are they behind me? Are they in front of me? And if you're not paying attention, you're looking at the inside, let's say fixing up the comms for your departure, you might not notice that, hey, that aircraft was right in front of you. Airport markings as well. I'm just going to reference the AIM. This tells you a lot about aircraft markings. There's so much to go over about that, but using this AIM resource, which is section 3, tell you everything you need to know about that. And then again, flight deck activities during taxi. So write down where you're taxiing, how you're going to get there. If it's a uncontrolled airport, knowing how you want to do that and communicating to traffic around you. So again, Shafter. Hey Shafter, traffic, Skyhawk, 71 Foxtrot Foxtrot is going to be taxiing down the Alpha looking for departure traffic or arrival traffic. Shafter. Letting them know, hey, I'm taxiing on this, I'm a section of taxi, and I'm looking out for any traffic that's coming into the airport or is already at the airport that could hinder me. And then, yeah. So again, flight deck activities. Always look out. Never look inside the aircraft if you're taxiing. It's just like driving. If you're going to be staring at the speedometer while you're driving, you're not going to notice, hey, there was a car in front of me that just started braking. And I believe that's it. So thank you for your time.